Hi guys, so in this video I wanted to talk about the things that you need for your first day of medical assistant training. You may not use all of this on your first day, and I don't want to talk about like the fact that you need to bring your textbooks and something to write notes on, but I will talk about other things that you may or may not have realized that you need. And like I said, this may not be just specifically for your first day of medical assistant training, but you will need it at some point, most likely through your medical assistant training. So, just as an FYI, you will need certain vaccinations or immunizations or a record of your immunizations so that you can do your externship, clinical, whatever you want to call it, like tetanus, measles, mumps, rubella, MMR, either the fact that you had chickenpox or that you got the vaccination, a TB test, a flu shot. You may need a COVID vaccine or a COVID test, depending on the requirements of your externship facility. You may have orientation. Not every program or not every school does an orientation before you actually start the program, but most of the time, if your school does offer an orientation, they will have a list of things that you need to bring with you, or like things that you will need throughout your program as far as like the supplies. Obviously, like I said, having something to take notes with, whether you're taking notes on a computer, Chromebook, iPad, on paper, whatever the case may be, make sure you have something to take notes. Make sure that you have your books, because of obvious reasons, so that you can read along or pay attention. And I would also recommend index cards to write down like pertinent information. That's just common throughout school in general, not necessarily just medical assistant school. So most schools, depending on your school, will require you to get scrubs at some point, whether they wait until you are going to your externship like my school did, or whether they want you to wear your scrubs during class. Every school is different, so just make sure that you pay attention to the requirements of your specific school. If you guys didn't know, Walmart also sells scrubs. You can get them on Amazon. I've gotten scrubs from a whole bunch of different places that are way cheaper than going to the actual scrub stores. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you are fine with spending, a possible exorbitant amount of money on scrubs, go right ahead and go to the scrub stores. But Walmart has some. You can find them at Goodwill, Salvation Army, thrift stores, stuff like that. You can find them there. You will need a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff. Sometimes your school will provide like a little kit with clinical supplies like that, which that's super cool if your school does that. My school did not. However, even if they did, I would have used my own stethoscope. I do have a blood pressure cuff, which I actually had to buy before going to my CNA training class, but I do have my own stethoscopes. I actually have 3 different ones, but I do have an MDF stethoscope that I use on a regular basis. Getting a manual blood pressure cuff is good with your stethoscope, even if your school doesn't require it, so that you can practice taking manual blood pressures, because I have heard of places when you go to interview wanting you to perform a manual blood pressure and seeing how you do with it. Obviously, like I said, the textbooks, note-taking supplies. I would say if your school doesn't require a certain color of shoe, make sure that you get something that's comfortable, because especially when you're on your externship, you are going to be on your feet. You're going to be busy going from place to place, doing clinical tasks and learning. Even if you're just shadowing someone for that day, you will need comfortable shoes because you're going to be on your feet. And in case you were curious, because I have had other people talk to me about this or ask me this specific question. This is not really necessarily supplies, but some of the curriculum or coursework that you may have during your program. Anatomy and physiology, obviously. You'll learn a lot of medical terminology. Pharmacology, which I had someone ask me this recently. They asked me if they should start studying pharmacology before they start their program. And what I recommend is with pharmacology, because it can be a little bit difficult, I would say if you're not starting your program yet, I would go through and just like kind of learn the basics, read about the basics of pharmacology. So then when you get to that section of the program, then you're not so overwhelmed because at least you have a little bit of time to like, you know, gradually ease into pharmacology. My program kind of like all over the place. Like we learned a whole bunch of coursework. Pharmacology, we spent a week on pharmacology. Not even a full week. It was like a day and part of the next lecture on pharmacology. So if you're in a longer program, then you may have more time to spend on, you know, getting used to pharmacology and learning more. But it is, I would say at least recommended that you read over some of the information before you have to deep dive into it. Medical office management, which can include like the medical office stuff, kind of front desk, billing, scheduling, electronic health records, infection control, and then obviously your clinical stuff, which covers vital signs, assisting with procedures, taking a medical history, getting the exam room ready for the doctor, you know, that kind of stuff. And I would say that my recommendation is to, when you're at school, focus on school. Try not to focus on everything else that's going on in your life because we all lead busy lives, but you have to focus. It's important that you are retaining your information that you're learning, especially when it comes to like taking the certification exams and things like that. It's hard to pass if you aren't focused on the information. You know, it's good to keep studying constantly throughout your program for those certification tests. So then when it comes time to take them, you're actually prepared to do so. You know, and then you have your externship. I would say if you can, try not to work during medical assistant school because sometimes it can be very hectic trying to balance a work and school schedule. But, you know, like I said, you do need to be focused on the information that you're learning throughout your program so that you can become the best medical assistant there is. My biggest tip when you are going through medical assistant school is to have an open mind. There may be different concepts brought up during your training that you may have never heard of before. You may have never thought that something like this would even exist. For example, we talked about some different things regarding hospice and palliative care in my program that I don't want to get into in depth, but, you know, just some of the ideas that people brought up in my class were very interesting to hear, like other people's thoughts on end-of-life care and things like that. So, I just think that it's important to, you know, make sure that you're prepared and, don't overstudy, but also don't understudy either. Just make sure that you're doing what you need to do so that you get the information, you retain it, and then you're able to pass your certification test as well as your program in general. Because even though I wouldn't say that medical assisting school is as hard as nursing school, it is still a lot of information, especially if you're in a program like mine that was accelerated. My certification program was 16 weeks long, and so I feel like that's a lot of information to take in and remember in such a short amount of time. So, you know, hopefully you found this video helpful. If there's any topics that are CNA, medical assistant, phlebotomy, or nursing school related, for those of you who don't know, I am going back to school to get my BSN. So that will be future content on my channel. In the process of figuring out which school I'm going to. I've talked to one and I'm talking to another one now, I think in 2 days. But I will share more information about that in a different video. However, I do appreciate you guys suggesting topics that you'd like to hear more about. And, you know, my goal for this channel now, Even though I will kind of mix in a few like daily vlogs and stuff about my daily life. My main goal is to focus on giving you guys information as far as like CNA, phlebotomy, medical assisting, and like I said, nursing school, and once I'm an RN, nursing. So hopefully you guys will find the content that I have coming up for you guys interesting and helpful. And if there's any topics you'd like me to talk about coming up, please feel free to let me know. I will put it on my list and get something filmed for you as soon as I'm able to. And yeah, I think that's about it. All right, guys, I will talk to you in tomorrow's video.